if somebody's listening to this and maybe they're interested in your perspective on co-parenting or how to navigate a divorce if it comes up, or they're currently like co-parenting with somebody else right now, what do you say to them so that it doesn't have such a negative impact on the kids?
Yeah, again, a great question. And you have some lived experience with that, which I think really, makes like I think those are the voices that have to get amplified, or people who've were children of divorce, and particularly contentious divorce. Because, whoever discovered water, it wasn't a fish. Like when you're in the thing and you're this young person, you kind of don't know any different, right? Like you just think this is how parents are. And that has an impact on people, and there's a lot of great mental health literature out there on, the unexpected legacy of divorce and the impact it has on children. And the sum and substance of it is that it's not divorce that's bad for kids. It's high conflict between parents and loyalty binds that's bad for kids. Now, that happens to correlate with divorce a whole lot, but it doesn't have to. Like, it's not like divorce requires that. There are plenty of people, myself included, who are divorced and divorced when they had young children, and their children were kind of blissfully unaware of any conflict between mom and dad, and really just were, yeah, like my dad lives here, my mom lives here. They both love me. Like they both are like they're my parents. They support each other. They have each other's back. They have full information. Like we used to, my ex and I would make a point, especially when the kids were teenagers, of like keeping each other in the loop. So that, when the boys came to me, I'd be like, well, your mom told me what happened the other night with you and Brian. And they're like, oh, geez, these two are fun. Like they know what's going on. Like they're, I can't pull anything over on either of them. And I think that was really healthy for their development. It's also why I think they became well-adjusted adults, because they grew up in a household where their mother and their father didn't live together, but loved them and were a team and were a family. I think high conflict divorce, and again, there's been a lot of great stuff written on this by people far more qualified than me when it comes to childhood development. But from what I understand of it, the idea, and we all know this as former children ourselves, right? That there's a period of time, that's referred to as idolization, where a child wants to believe and needs to believe psychologically that their parents are like superheroes. My dad could lift anything. He's the strongest man alive. He could do anything. He knows everything. And my mom knows everything. She could cook anything perfect. She makes the best everything. She does the best everything. They can fight the monsters in the closet, and the monsters in the closet are afraid of them. The monsters under the bed are afraid of my mom and my dad. And then, of course, children eventually and gradually go, okay, my dad's really strong, but like he's not the strongest. Like he can't lift a car. And like that other guy who I saw who has huge muscles, like he's stronger than my dad. Like you start to figure out, like, okay, my parents are good at some things and bad at some things. And then as an adult, you start to figure out, oh my God, my parents are just human beings. Like they're just as screwed up as anybody. But that's individuation. That's the next stage, right? So we have idealization, we have individuation. Divorce pulls a kid from idealization into individuation, sometimes way too soon. If you're a little kid and all of a sudden, okay, mom is perfect and dad is perfect, but dad's leaving mom or mom's leaving dad and they're not going to be, well, why? That can't be true then. Because if mom and dad are both perfect, why would one of them not want to be with the other one? So it's a real psychological dilemma for kids. And a lot of times in divorce, I don't think people have bad intentions. I don't think anybody ever goes, I really want to screw my kids up, so let's do. I think people really have good intentions, but they just don't realize, what their words, what their demeanor, like the impact it's having. We have tremendous persuasive power on our children. And, it's not a matter, I always jokingly say, you know, it takes a special kind of psycho to say to a kid, your father is a bad person. But it's pretty common to do the, hello, here it's your dad. Well, you just told this person you roll your eyes, you hand them the phone. You're saying very clearly your dad's a bad person. Kid comes home from a visit with dad, and you say, "Hey, did you have a good time with dad? Oh, what'd you guys do? You went to the park? Oh, that's cool. That's great. Wait, did you guys eat something? Oh, you got pizza? Oh, you love pizza. Okay, good. All right, well, go upstairs, brush your teeth. It's gonna be time to go to bed soon." Versus, "Hey, you're home. I'm so glad you're home. I missed you so much when you were with your dad. What'd you do? Oh, you went to the park? Really? Today? When it's so kind of gross out? Dad took you to the park? Oh my gosh. What did you have for dinner? Pizza. You had pizza for dinner? Did you have a salad or any no vegetables? Nothing? Dad didn't give you, you just had pizza? Okay. You know what? If you want, I'll make you something healthy to eat, because I guess dad maybe forgot that it's important to eat vegetables, okay, what did you just tell this kid? Like, you just told this kid, dad's a bad person. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't know how to feed you the right things. But you didn't. If a judge or somebody asked that kid, does mom ever talk bad about dad? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But clearly mom's talking bad about dad in that situation. She's just doing it in a much more insidious way. And by the way, it's not, male female thing. There's plenty of men that do that, same kind of game. And sometimes couples, they both do that with each other. And that's how that's how people really twist up their kids. And they do it with the permission of their own conscience, because they they very often, I don't think, even mean to do it. They just think they're protecting their kid from this person who they have very negative feelings about. Because maybe the person's a terrible spouse, but you can be a terrible spouse and be a really good parent. That's entirely possible. It's a different skill set. You can be a great employee and a terrible manager, or a great manager and not a very good employee. Like, people, just the job description for a parent and the job description for a spouse is not the exact same job description. Yeah, there's some overlap. Being patient is good. Being thoughtful is good. Communicating well is important. Being disciplined, those are all good things for either of those jobs. But it's not the same job. And so when you look at your spouse and you go, this person's not a good spouse, okay, they might be a really good parent. So don't take your spouse out on them as a parent.
Given the fact that two people are highly emotional when they're going through a divorce and there's kids involved, and then there's like, all right, like, I want to make sure that I'm getting my fair share. I want to make sure that I'm getting enough time with my kids. And then we also have heard the quote that it's like, it's better to have kids raised in two separate functional homes versus a dysfunctional home. What should the parents do, I guess, together to strengthen their relationship? What have you seen work? Is it co-parenting classes? Is it therapy? Like, what has helped to give them a good opportunity to raise these kids?
I certainly think if you're the kind of people that can do some kind of co-parenting counseling together, it's never a bad idea. I think individual counseling is really important. I think if the more you know yourself, your own triggers, the mistakes you are prone to making, the things that are gonna, like, where you screw it up, where your blind spots are, the better. I think that the more you know that, the better you're going to be in a relationship, right? I mean, it's just like any relationship. If you to know yourself, you're going to be better as a spouse, or a partner. Same thing with co-parenting. It's just another type of relationship. If you know yourself well and you're honest with yourself about your blind spots and the things that you screw up, or the things that, that's a big piece of it. Um, Learning how to communicate, I think, is really important. There's great resources out there, like there's parent coordinators, there's co-parenting therapists that will help people learn how to communicate better. I think sometimes subtly our language is even very loaded. Like, if you say, like, well, my kids or my daughter, it's our daughter, like our kids. Even languages, I think, can be important. And then I really do think that there's good tech out there now. Like, Our Family Wizard is an app that a lot of co-parents use, either conflict-filled ones or even just like routine ones. Having a shared Google Calendar is huge. Like some kind, and some apps like, Our Family Wizard, or there's another one, Family Wise, I think it's called, where it's like a shared calendar. You can add things onto it, so you both have like full information. I think that there's a lot out there. If you're open to the fact that this is something it's like parenting itself. Like, there's no guidebook. Nobody's born like with a full knowledge base of how to do it. A little humble goes a long way, and just saying, like, hey, look, this is a new chapter for us. I say in my book that one of the things I think people should do when they get divorced and they have children is write what I call a letter of apology and introduction. And it's two separate things, but maybe one letter. I did it myself when I got divorced. My kids were quite young; they were like 5 and 7. And I remember I wrote a letter of apology, just saying, "Look, I know I hurt you in our marriage, and I know I screwed up as a husband. Like I must have, I know I did, and I'm really sorry for that. Like I never meant to. Like I never meant to hurt you ever. I never meant to get it wrong. I always wanted to be someone who did a good job for you, and I'm really sorry to the extent that I was not the husband that you needed, or that I couldn't give you what you wanted, or anything like that. But I really want to be a good ex-husband." And that's the introduction part of it, is like we're changing now. Like this is a new thing now. Like I want to, however I failed you, however, if there's any anger, sadness, any of that stuff, I'll own that and I'll take that. But I want to be a good ex-husband. I want to be a good father to our kids. I want to be a good co-parent. And I'm going to screw up from time to time. And I'm going to humbly ask you to help me get better at this and to do a good job. And I think that most people love their children way more than they hate their ex. Like most people, no matter how much they hate their ex, they love their children more. Like they love their children so much that they most people will say like, "Oh my God, I jump in front of a bullet for my kids." Like, and I think they're telling the truth. I think they would jump in front of a bullet for their kids. Like, I think people like, holy cow, man, people love their kids. Kids and dogs. Like they love their kids and their dogs more than they love themselves most of the time. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But if you love them enough that you jump in front of a bullet, you probably should love them enough that you could be friendly to your co-parent. Like you could be friendly to the person that your children love that much, even if you can't stand them, even if they hurt you, even if they, were a bad spouse and they disappointed you. And so I think that is the best thing people can do, is to realize that this is a new chapter in your parenting journey, and that the sooner you make that shift and make it honestly and openly, the better your life is going to be and the better your children's lives are going to be.